Welcome to the first episode of this new series. As the title suggests, this is going to be a bit of a Q&A series. You ask questions, I give answers. They can be about Final Fantasy XIV, the wider series as a whole, or just things you want to know my opinion about. This first episode is going to be questions I got from my patrons and Discord. If you want to submit a question, comment down below, and make sure you say you are submitting the question for the video in specific. This way I know to include it. If you enjoy this video or anything else I make, please hit the like button, subscribe, or even just comment for the algorithm. My Patreon is also an option if you'd like to support me monetarily. Otherwise, let's get into the video. Welcome to Questions and Answers. Wesk rambles and makes the title too long. The question that got me to have this idea and will hopefully best show what kinds of questions you can spring for in this series was from someone who I will keep anonymous. But they asked me, what is pot timing? Now, anyone who is even a little knowing about pots knows that's just when you use pots in a fight, right? Well, they further asked that nothing ever seems to explain the why part of pot timing. So let's talk about that. I will be using footage of my clears for the current raid tier in Dawntrail to show this off. So as I said, pot timing is when you use potions in a fight. The most basic pot timing windows are in your opener at the beginning of a fight. Then you will use them on cooldown as long as it is within a 2-minute window. So as a Dragoon, I use my second pot as soon as my 2-minute battle litany cooldown becomes available after the much longer potion cooldown is done. Easy enough. However, this is not a global rule you always follow. For example, there are jobs who have better burst from the second 2-minute window and onward. Reaper and Viper start a fight with no gauge. In the 2-minute windows, you start doing double Enshroud and double Reawaken windows. You're using Enshroud and Reawaken twice within a burst window. These attacks are your strongest, so using a pot here is often more beneficial than in your opener. This still isn't the case though. Depending on fight design and fight kill time, you might still pot your opener as these jobs. You can use 3 potions if you pot the opener, but not if you pot 2 minutes into a fight. The long potion cooldown will not roll over if you immediately pot, so you have to account for that. And then, you'll pot every 2-minute window they are available for. This is still not globally true, especially in the current raid tier. In M6S, you'll delay your 2-minute window entirely just by a little in order to best destroy the ads in the ad phase. In M7S, you end up holding at the end as well. You can get one last potion in there if you pop the moment you land into phase 3, then hold your 2 minutes for that cooldown. In M8S, there's 2 major parts of the fight. Your final 2-minute window of the first part has potions up, but you'll actually ignore this pot if your damage is safe. You'll finish off the phase and start part 2 with very misaligned cooldowns. Jobs with a 1-minute cooldown button will have that skill off of cooldown. So everyone is going to pot here to benefit their 1-minute window, while also getting one more potion at the end of the fight. If you delayed to the next 2-minute window, you would not get 2 potions in this section. So the why of potion windows can change fight to fight, and job to job. You have to feel a fight out to really get where pot timings are. C-Squared asked if there were any raid tiers or fights that my opinion drastically differed from the consensus. And I mean, we don't have to go far for that. Anabasios, I was very much the opposite of most people. P10S is the worst fight in the game, and I stand by that. P11S I thought was a just objectively better version of E11S, so like, the opposite opinions of anyone and everyone. Though also, for as painful as it was, I think A3S was a good fight. Extremely punishing and painful, but fun. Leah asks if the speed we do dungeons has increased or decreased over time. The answer is neither. It's about the same. Of course, power creep is making every older dungeon way easier and faster as a result. So in that case, we're moving way faster. On content stuff? Yeah, no, we're around the same spot. A leveling dungeon you can expect to last no longer than 20 minutes without significant issues during, with level cap dungeons lasting on the low end toward 10 minutes. I think back specifically to Heavensward and the Great Gubal Library hard. This dungeon was extremely short, especially with a dedicated speedrunning group. this was your ideal tome farm when it was the new dungeon. Speed through and absolutely murder everything inside. The game is still relatively fresh compared to our current 10-year run, and we were already wall-to-wall spamming. We were doing it in A Realm Reborn even. Leveling dungeons, you rarely could get away with it and would just multi-pool. But level cap dungeons, we were zooming. Even Wanderer's Palace hard, the good tanks would at minimum do big pools, ideally a full wall-to-wall. It was very possible, very much often done. For Brayflock's hard farming, I was not yet here for that. I assume it's what the current strat is. You full pull everything from the start to the first boss. I've been doing that too. It's a bit hard, but not exactly impossible. We as players have definitely generally gotten better with time as well. Playing a game for 10 years will do that, even if you suck. Add in how tank stances and cleric stance went away by popular demand, and the scarier roles got a lot less scary. A lot less garbage too, with the removal of cleric. Fuck that skill. I'm getting off topic though. The change is that the game is designed around wall-to-walling now. The fact most every dungeon is 4 pulls, 2 wall-to-walls, before every boss is a reaction to the players broadly expecting wall-to-walling. Back in the day, it was very much a show of skill due to wall-to-walls potentially being 6 pulls at once. They saw players expecting wall-to-walls. I wanted at least multi-pulls because single pulls were just boring like they still are, and started to design around that. So the skill aspect is gone. A tank really should be wall-to-walling without exception. If they don't, they are often seen as a poor tank. A single pull today is about the same as a single pull back in the day. Maybe actually harder in leveling content, since they condensed a potential 6 groups into 2. The problem is that the jump is much smaller. Giving arbitrary difficulty ratings, if an ARR single pull is rated at a 20 and a DT single pull is a 30, that means DT wall-to-walls cap out at 60. ARR wall-to-walls could be triple pulls of equal difficulty, or quad pulls for a difficulty of 80, or the Penta 100 difficulty pulls. This is where people often get lost in their thoughts about old design versus new design. The ARR dungeons that allowed for these extremely huge pools stick out. Meanwhile, there's also those ARR dungeons where the largest pool is a triple pool, or just genuinely bad to wall due to other factors like Holebreaker's first section due to those damn monkeys being paired with bees. The moment you move into Heavensward, the best expansion, has no faults, no design problems, everything is good by the way, dungeons became far more linear. Huge wall-to-walls near disappeared, with at most 1 per dungeon, and generally that is what started our current design philosophy. The trash part of dungeons was massively de-emphasized, and if made easier, was entirely so that everyone could do it as they were expected to. Design around players, since the players hate anything that goes off the beaten path. Because none of you can tell me that it was broadly appreciated how the Thousand Maws had split paths. There was a lot of complaints about that dungeon before the revamp, but the split paths was included in that. And as someone who still hates Heavensward, and thinks it is actually the lowest point in the game, this is something I don't actually fault the expansion for. The dungeon design had a huge change here, and is the start of what most people seem to dislike about current dungeons, yet even I won't put that as a black mark against the expansion. Let's do a question more about me. Do I like Resident Evil? Why Wesker? Well, you may actually find it more shocking that Resident Evil 5 was the first Resident Evil I beat. I remember in 3rd grade, the last day of school, one kid brought in his GameCube and a small TV. He was playing Resident Evil 4. The game looked cool and fun, and I wanted it, so I got it. I think the furthest I got was the path up to Salazar's castle before I was too scared and too bad at the game to beat it. The Ashley stuff was too much for Kid Me to handle. She died so many times. Reading about later game challenges that involved protecting her, I was turned really off. So then comes Resident Evil 5. I play it, love it, beat it, and even got the Platinum Trophy. My first Platinum Trophy of any game. This set me up on the path to the achievement hunter I am today, much to my backlog's chagrin. Naturally, dealing with Wesker in that game is inevitable. I loved the performance and the cheesy voice lines. Complete. Global. Saturation. Your future hinges upon this fight. So, I was a huge fan. In an ironic universe being funny moment, one of the first YouTube videos I watched was Proton Claire's Kaizo videos, which forever gave me the vocal stems of Jump Mega Man and For the love of Batman!
Jump!
She would go on to base her streaming career around Wesker and eggs. Eggs were an item in the series used for healing or selling. In the Mercenaries mode, Wesker would say, "You will give me an egg."
You will give me an egg.
So, being a fan of her and finding her streams, I ended up having my Wesker love reinforced. This led me to being Weskalber, while also making a character that looked nothing like him. My original design was not this. I actually had to use my first Fantasia to get here, because my guild leader at the time kept making fun of the guy I made. Hi Anne, this is your fault if you see this. Of course, now that I am established as a creator, it goes beyond just the Wesker thing. I like the name Wesk, even with no connection to Wesker. I want to continue to be Wesk. It evolved way past any sort of cosplay and such. I'll still meme and quote the original source, but I'm completely my own thing. If I was ever forced to change my name, for whatever reason, it's the Alba that's going away. I'm Wesk now. Gene Windstar asks what I think the most underrated content in FF14 is. That one is simple, there is no contest. It's PvP. No other content in the game is it anywhere close to a common idea that they need to delete this from the game because it wastes dev resources. Every content has its detractors who say this, but nobody talks about it as bad as PvP gets. PvP is affected by the inherent latency of the game, yes. PvP is flawed and often has needed reworking, which is why they did. But good God, there is so much ignorance in how so many people just detest frontlines as if it's holistically bad, while listing reasons that are skill issues. A team that sucks is not the game mode's fault. It's people treating the game mode as less important to try than dungeons. There are so many people who intentionally feed and throw. There's always that one player you'll see over and over who comes into the middle of your entire 24-man team, solo, and barely puts up a fight. They are feeding you free battle high, and it's not even funny. That isn't frontline being bad, that's people needing a swift ban, and should never go back into frontline if they're going to be that shitty about it. Just the other day as of writing this, I had to report someone for throwing Onso Hakeir. They kept spamming about fighting mid, actively saying we should ignore all other nodes on the map. We should get mid, and no other nodes. You do not win an objective-based mode without objectives. They weren't arguing that we should be farming battle high. They were saying to fight mid, and nothing else. Imagine if people played dungeons like this. Oh sure, I don't have to heal at all. I also am just gonna spam Dia. Not even Glare, just Dia. Even in trash mobs. I'm also going to solo pull and not do damage more than I need to for keeping aggro. Fight ads only, the boss doesn't matter, etc. Even normally tryhard players act like this in PvP because who cares about winning? Other such excuses that are basically hand-waving. PvP can be a hell of a lot of fun when playing with intent. Instead, we get problems like Seal Rock, where Northeast is the worst spawn. Not because the mode itself is imbalanced, but because players are stupid, objectively. West spawn is, objectively, the best spawn, no question. 3 nodes within spitting distance of spawn, with them all being pretty easy to defend. Cave gets so many advantages with the map design, so what do people do? Everyone goes east. All 3 teams. The other 2 spawns actively give Cave spawn a better spawn point because they aren't trying. At worst, everyone should go mid. At best, Cave should be getting decimated every run because of their stupidly good spawn. But no, Northeast is the worst spawn because southeast is going to hit the beach where northeast is also going. This gives cave spawn the choice of which team they are going to pinch, which often is northeast spawn for some reason, despite that being the worst spawn node-wise. Northeast has 2 close nodes, with only one being relatively nice to defend at the best of times. Southeast has arguably 5 nodes in their area, but they are very common fighting areas that can be hard to defend. Then again, Cave has at least 3, 4 if you count the near middle node, which is extremely nice to defend with the high ground. There are so many imbalanced parts to this mode, but you wouldn't really expect what parts are the actually imbalanced ones with how players play the mode. The team with a disadvantage gets clowned on half the time until the node spawns even out the bullying. One of these days, they're going to redo the map of Seas, and I absolutely cannot wait for people to continue to give Cave an advantage just because they Pavloved themselves into always going east. Final question for today. Why make why did I just go Australian? Why make videos? Spite! No, but seriously, the answer is spite. Genuinely, spite. Even before I made videos, I made it a goal to help players who clearly needed it. After far too many, you don't pay my subs and so forth, I said screw you idiots, I'm going to make stuff for the people who actually want to not be intentionally bad. I truly do want to help people. I can get upset and irritated like any other person, but I want to help. In a lot of games, I feel like being a better player can make a game more fun. This isn't true of all games, especially ones with very different design intentions than an MMO. But my brain works in a way where spamming random buttons while my team suffers to pick up my slack as fun. Struggling is one thing, but so many are willfully bad. So while I continue to always give advice, I wanted to put my energy into something that would help those who are trying to improve, be it even just information-wise. So that got me started, to spite the people who have no intent on being a team player, to help those who actually want to improve. I did a pretty alright job of that, I think. And so that ends our first episode of Questions and Answers. Like I said at the start, comment with your own questions and make sure you say you want it to be used in the video. I can't differentiate between questions to be answered immediately or not, depending on the question. Be sure to like the video, comment the video even if no questions, subscribe to the video, and share the video. Come join me on Patreon or Twitch or so forth. Links in the description for all your needs. Take care and may the power of an edit hog lay waste to your enemies.